I am especially drawn to how Julie Lluch uses varying line qualities and textures in the bust of Rita Kalaw-Ledesma. How she defines the different edges and surfaces of her work, the face, the hair, neck, chest, clothes, and arms. All these lines and surfaces combined creates interest, making the form visually poignant at all angles. Julie's choice of subtle colors, of varying gradients of sepia, transports you within the world of an old photograph. The details of her face haunts and draws you to another place in history and nostalgic time. I especially like the eyes. This is what gravitates me towards the work. Her intent look, thoughtful gaze, prods the viewer to look within, to search the depths of her visionary being and encounter their own humanity. Clearly a woman before and beyond her time, this life-size and lifelike sculpture of Purita Kalaw-Ledesma has a deeply affecting presence that captivates the viewer and stirs quiet emotions within. Julie's use of terracotta or earthenware clay, a material that has been and still is traditionally used to make utilitarian pots, like our palayok and banga, offers a new generation of artists to explore it as a medium for sculptural works. Considering that the clay she uses is from local origins and sustainable sources, her works also become genuinely Pinay. Being an artist working with clay myself, and looking at Julie's bust of Purita Kalaw-Ledesma, I cannot help be amazed with her mastery of the medium, which can sometimes be unforgiving. To successfully be able to work with clay, to truly capture its nature, possibilities, and limitations, Julie had to develop a relationship with it. She interacted with it, conversed with it, listened to it, enough to know when to move forward and when to step on the brakes. As clay work needs to breathe, to release some moisture and gain its own strength at its own pace, Julie's timing in working with clay is evidently second nature to her. I have often heard the potters saying that clay has a memory. It is true. It tends to go back to its contented state unless you firmly coax it to the form you intend to make. You need to compress the clay so it will keep its shape. Otherwise, it can shrink to a former memory, causing the work to crack. Julie's strong connection with the medium allows her to impose her memory on the clay she works with. Clay sculptures need to be hollow and its walls kept to approximately an even thickness. This is so for it to dry and fire evenly, reducing the chances of cracking during drying and exploding in the kiln while firing. I was not able to ask Julie about the techniques she uses to form her works, but based on my knowledge of hand-building sculptural forms in clay, she may have taken either one of the following approaches. In the first technique, the bust could have been made from bottom up, using coils and slab work, and then modeled into the form. The second technique could be that she modeled and sculpted the work solid, then cut it into pieces, hollowed out, and reassembled again. Either way, with all the considerations that go with the forming of the piece, and the added challenge involved in working on a life-size sculpture, there is a lot of engineering and tremendous thought that goes into creating her work. Just like most potters and clay artists, Julie is grounded and patient. One cannot be easily or instantly gratified in working with clay, as the process is long and often arduous before one can see the final piece. Clay has to be prepared, given form, watched over as it dried, and then fired. Sometimes it is glazed and then fired again. In each stage of the process, some things can go wrong. It can flop, crack, break, or explode. Julie had to work carefully at each stage of the process and be keen on abiding to techniques and procedures. Our approximations on our medium may or may not yield perfect, but what is more significant for us than the object we create is the lessons learned in the experience. We have found peace in the floor that is littered with shards of our past failures. When things do not go our way, we allow ourselves to weep, to fill our eyes with tears and let it run down our cheeks. Or even an episode of frenzied self-pity is permissible. But once this is exhausted, we go back to our studios with pride and renewed energy, sweep off the floor, and begin to work again. I absolutely relate with Julie's insight on the potter's life, its closeness to nature, its romance with earth, water, wind, fire, and its simplicity. I too have been enthralled by the way the potters work the earth and water, and romance fire and wind to breathe life into his creation. It can really entice any artist who wish to humbly collaborate with the forces of nature. For me, firing clay is the most furtive and humbling stage of the collaboration. Even with the knowledge of how clay behaves during firing, we can only but speculate to its actuality. I imagine how the numerous firings had transformed not only Julie's work from clay to ceramics, but also how it changed her each time. Her capacity to trust, to surrender, and to embrace whatever each firing gives back. To some purists or hardcore potters, joining pieces of the work that comes out of the firing and painting them with a painting medium other than refractory stains, oxides, and glazes seem blasphemous. But for me, Julie's process is a genuine marriage of the fine arts, a union of both sculpture and painting. I liken her technique to the famous hyper-realist ceramic artist Tip Toland. I had the privilege of being invited alongside with her as guest demonstrator in the 2015 International Ceramics Festival in UK, where I had the opportunity and honor to meet and interact with her. She creates these human-like clay figures, often larger than life, and also joins the pieces and paints them meticulously after firing. She too, for some time, felt that finishing her fired clay work this way is sacrilegious to the pure process of ceramic art. But the viewer's response to her work and the impact of her art to the world made her think otherwise. The backstage production of art is not always glamorous, but the outcome is what takes the viewer's breath away. She is pleased to say that she is happy working the way she does, and her art has validated her process. I imagine that after Julie's many passionate episodes in working with clay, the artist and the medium clearly became one. In her words, it's the medium that pointed to everything. Eventually, it would wield with who you are. So eventually, clay became me. The cultivation of this union yielded the success of her art making, which in turn impacts her audiences and inspires many more clay artists who choose to take parallel paths.